Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. And if you don't know, it's episode 50 of the podcast today. And so I'm so excited to be joined by Oscar. And we've got some fantastic fights this weekend. UFC 266. Oh, man, we're in for a treat. I can't wait. How's it going, Oscar?
It's going great. I don't know how you could not be excited for this weekend. We have a great headliner, a great co-main event, and we have the return of Nick Diaz after 6 years to have a rematch against Robbie Lawler, a fight that happened 209 months ago.
Yeah, you mentioned it before we went on air. It's Hall of Fame week. And
good old Iceman, the Chuck
Iceman
there.
Yeah, I got him over watching me. But yeah, you mentioned here, international. It's International Fight Week, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes.
We're also
so Hall of Fame and the press conference will go down today. I'm excited for it. Quick early prediction: who do you think is going to get the best of each other on the press conference?
I honestly think we're gonna see Alexander Volkanovski have some smart remarks for Brian Ortega, and I think it could tick him off a little. I think if it comes down to it, I think it's more likely that we'll see Brian Ortega get mad and who even knows try to get up and attack him.
Oh, well, the bold prediction from Oscar. So while we're talking about that fight, should we go ahead and get straight into it and recap it? Not recap, break it down and predict it.
Yeah, 100%. We have two title fights on this card. This is the true headliner, Alexander Volkanovski against Brian Ortega. Volkanovski, in my opinion, is the most underappreciated champion in the UFC right now. The body of work is off the chain. He's on a 19-fight win streak. He beat Max Holloway twice in his last two. In his last fight, that was not a clear win, but the third round was the deciding round of the fight, and I honestly thought you could have given it to either guy. So that's what I think of Alexander Volkanovski. I think he's on the same level as Max. And before that, he was able to beat Jose Aldo and Chad Mendes. Those are phenomenal fighters, some of the greats. And Volkanovski, he really put on great performances against those guys. I think this guy's very underrated, and he should be a bigger favorite against Brian Ortega, who, before his recent performance against Korean Zombie, we were thinking, will this guy ever compete at the highest level? Because what Max Holloway did to him, that takes a piece away from you. That was an unbelievable beating, a doctor's stoppage it was after the fourth round. So nice to see Brian Ortega bounce back from that and look like a new fight against Korean Zombie. But Korean Zombie is a very different opponent than Volkanovski. Zombie was clearly afraid of the grappling. Brian Ortega, maybe not afraid, but he respected it a lot. He didn't want to go down on the ground with him, so he had to strike with him. And Brian Ortega just was a step ahead. He tagged him bad, and in the second round, he landed a beautiful spinning elbow that actually put away Korean Zombie. Korean Zombie was knocked out, but it was a flash knockout. So he got back up, and he was literally a zombie for the next couple rounds, and that's why he was basically on autopilot. So that's why Brian Ortega shined that much that night. Volkanovski will come forward. He will have more volume in this fight. He's going to have the cleaner striking, and he can mix it up, and I don't think he's scared of the grappling, because guess who's in his corner? What Chael Sonnen has been calling the best no-gi grappler in the world, Craig Jones, the master of leg locks. There's no way that Volkanovski is going to be super uncomfortable against Brian Ortega because he's been rolling with Craig Jones on a consistent basis. So I think Volkanovski made the proper preparation for this fight. I think he's fully ready for this, and I think he could get a stoppage here, but we know how tough Brian is, so I think he gets a unanimous decision, and he outworks him, and I think this won't be – I don't think this will be super competitive, to be honest.
I 100% agree with you. And the key word that I took from you talking was outwork. 100%. I think Volkanovski outworks Brian Ortega in this fight everywhere on the feet. If it does go to the ground, I see Brian Ortega initiating that. I don't think Volkanovski will be that stupid to try and take the fight to the ground. As we know, Brian Ortega is, a black belt in Gracie Barra, a phenomenal black belt. But as you mentioned, he's got Craig Jones in his corner. That's a solid BJJ practitioner to have in your corner even if it does get into them trouble times, just to walk you through positions, how to get out of them. So as you mentioned, he's done the correct way to get ready for this fight. But in this fight, Volkanovski would get the better of Ortega everywhere the fight goes, in my opinion.
100%. This fight was supposed to happen March 29th of this year on the co-main event for Francis and Stipe, but unfortunately, Volkanovski got a positive coronavirus test. So we had to wait a little bit, and we had a whole Ultimate Fighter season. And both guys got to know each other a little better, and they really got to really get to know their opponent in a way where they can develop a better game plan. So I think both guys have better game plans than they would have back in March. So I think Volkanovski has them all figured out. I think this is such a winnable fight for Volkanovski, and maybe we get the Max trilogy after this. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I would like to see that fight if it does. If Volkanovski does in. But if you're Max, best case scenario is Brian Ortega wins this fight this weekend, surely.
Yeah, that would be a guaranteed rematch between those two because the first one was so one-sided. Also, one thing to note here, Brian Ortega, let's hope he's got his cardio in check because let's be honest, the Korean Zombie was not pushing the pace on him against when he fought back in October. Both guys are actually coming off long layoffs. But nonetheless, Brian Ortega could not even hold his hands up to block against Max Holloway because the pace was so incredible. So maybe that could happen here and we just see Brian Ortega break. That's a real possibility because Volkanovski's cardio tank is off the chain. I just think Volkanovski's not a guy that'll slow down at all. The guy won a fourth round against Max Holloway, who has one of the best gas tanks in the UFC. He also fought Darren Elkins and destroyed him the whole time. And usually maybe Darren Elkins gets the jump on you later. That never happened. Volkanovski is such a special talent. So is Brian Ortega, but I really think Volkanovski is just miles ahead right now.
I agree. And I also want to mention Volkanovski's heart, his courage to carry on. We've seen it in the Chad Mendes fight. He got hurt. He came back, got the finish. We saw it in the Max Holloway fights. He got hurt, came back, eventually got, his heart in them later rounds, the fourth or the fifth round. That's where Volkanovski really shines. He really puts the pressure on, as you mentioned, his endurance, his cardio is second to none. And I really feel like the third, fourth, and fifth round, that's Volkanovski's era. And he's going to take over in them third, fourth, fifth rounds. It's going to be the championship rounds where Volkanovski really shows how good he is.
100%. And another point some people like to make is the size difference between these two. Brian Ortega is clearly the taller guy. Guess who has the reach advantage? Alexander Volkanovski. He's got pretty unusually long arms for a guy that size. He had the reach advantage on Max Holloway. I think this is going to be a showcase fight for Volkanovski because his last two fights, even though Volkanovski was just as good, Max Holloway was clearly the A side. A lot of people are focusing on Max Holloway, so this is going to be kind of a coming out party for Volkanovski. People are going to really see him fight somebody besides Max, and I think he's going to put up a good performance that'll get him more respect because he deserves it. This would be his 20th win in a row.
Yeah. As you see there, the 22-1, fantastic run since taking that first defeat. But yeah, while we're talking about title fights, the second title fight of the evening will be Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy. This is, Lauren Murphy. This is not Lerone. That's a completely different fighter. Lauren Murphy. Yeah, Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy in the co-main event. Is this an easy fight to pick? I mean, surely it is. Look, she's a minus 1,600 favorite according to ESPN.
This is actually the easiest fight to pick all year. I don't think Lauren Murphy has any shot at winning this. I think the only way she would win is with control time. But while they're striking, she's not going to get anything going. She will not get anything going at all. She was literally getting outworked by Joanne Calderwood a couple months ago. Like, what are we talking about here? This is going to be a showcase fight for Valentina as always. And what's crazy about Valentina is after she beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk, we're like, oh my goodness, she's going to be unbeatable. And even her wrestling back then was not as good as it is now. So we've seen even more improvements We've even seen her lose a round to Jennifer Maia and come back and dominate the rest of the fight. I don't think Lauren Murphy can win this at all. I think this is such a terrible fight for her. And also, not to mention, but Lauren Murphy is super hittable. She's absorbed 100 plus strikes in 3 round fights. This is a 5 round fight, the first 5 round fight of Lauren Murphy's career. I think this is going to be a fight where we see Lauren Murphy show off her toughness, as she is very tough. She's even fought at featherweight before, and I don't think the size with Lauren Murphy here is going to make much of a difference. I don't think she can take her down. I don't think she can hurt her. I think this is going to be a fight where we see once again why Valentina is the second best female fighter of all time.
100%, I agree with you on this one. If you just look at the significant strikes landed per minute, Lauren Murphy is the busier woman according to ESPN, but it's what connects and what hurts more. And I think Valentina Shevchenko has that in her locker. I feel like Lauren Murphy's going to doing their pop shots, but nothing's going to be really landing. I feel like Lauren Murphy's not even going to get anywhere near close to Valentina Shevchenko in this fight. The Muay Thai of Shevchenko is absolutely beautiful. She's going to stick to her kicks all night and keep her at range. And if there was a wrestling exchange, I favor Valentina Shevchenko once again.
Yeah, a lot of people thought maybe Jessica Andrade can give her some problems, but we saw Valentina dominate Jessica Andrade in that fight and win by crucifix elbows. And that is a position that I've seen Lauren Murphy actually train, the crucifix elbows position. I think she's trained it enough where she probably can get out of the position, but she's definitely going to be left bloody, and Valentina's just going to put a great beating on her. And this is actually a step down in competition for Valentina, because I thought Jessica Andrade is a better grappler, and's got more pop on her punches. So this is a step down for competition, Valentina, and that's why she's so confident.
Yeah, I'm going with Valentina Shevchenko. I presume you'll go with Valentina Shevchenko. Is there a finish in this fight?
This is very tough to pick because I always pick a decision for Valentina, and then she goes out there and destroys them. But I'll end up picking decision. I think Lauren Murphy's pretty tough.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a 4th or 5th round finish in this fight. I think Valentina Shevchenko, in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round, I think the pace is going to be incredible for Valentina Shevchenko. And in the 4th and 5th round, I feel like, as you mentioned, Lauren Murphy's first ever 5-round main event. And I feel like we're going to really see that come into effect this weekend. And I feel like she's going to slow down significantly in the later rounds and eventually get finished by crucifix.
Yeah, that's what Valentina has been liking as of late. And we're going to see some violence from Shevchenko in this fight. And if you want to talk about violence,
yeah,
the return Nick Diaz fighting Robbie Lawler. This is a rematch from 2004. My brother wasn't even born yet when this fight happened. This is going to be a slugfest, most likely, as it was the first time. Both guys always come to fight. They're not there to win rounds. They're there to scrap. And Nick Diaz has not won since 2011 against BJ Penn. That win has aged like milk. And Robbie Lawler has not won in 4 years against since he beat Donald Cowboy Cerrone. And that win has aged like milk as well. So who do you think can bounce back after a skid?
I think Robbie Lawler takes it. We were talking about this before we went on air, and we were both talking about the shadow boxing of Nick Diaz, him personally requesting this fight to go to middleweight, and they're all red signs in my head. And I'm thinking, what is it? Does he not want to get down to 170? Is he not comfortable with the weight cut? Which is what I presume. He hasn't cut weight, and as you mentioned, since when was his last fight? 2014 against Anderson Silva?
15 January.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there we go. 2015 against Anderson Silva. So he's been a long time away for Nick Diaz, and I just didn't think he had enough to get down to 170, and that was red signals for me. But then I saw the shadow boxing, and that convinced me. That little clip there, or that video little clip, that convinced me that I'm going with Robert Lawler in this fight.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying Nick Diaz was never quick anyway. Well, he was never quick, but he looks even a step behind now, to be honest. And if you look at pictures from Nick Diaz back in April, he looked to be in much better shape. He looks like he's carrying a more water weight now, which is very confusing. I don't know why he requested this for middleweight. I think this suits Robbie Lawler better if it's at middleweight. If you remember Robbie Lawler's middleweight run, the guy was a monster. 10 knockouts at that weight class. He was fighting legitimate career-long middleweights like Melvin Manhoef, Jacare Souza, Tim Kennedy. He was fighting these guys in competitive fights. And he was a one-punch KO kind of guy. And welterweight, he had to put together combos to eventually break them. But at middleweight, if he landed the right bomb, he puts you away. If you remember the Melvin Manhoef fight, his leg was getting destroyed, and he gets the perfect counterpunch. And Melvin Manhoef is as stiff as a board in the first round. So I think this suits Robbie Lawler better. Robbie Lawler, of course, he's ready to go 5 rounds. He's gone out hard 5 rounds before. So has Nick. But there's so many questions on the Nick Diaz side, and a couple of them were answered yesterday, and I think enough were answered to where I don't think picking Nick Diaz right now is a winning game. I don't think he has the right confidence. I don't know where his motivation is coming from, and I don't even know if he's in the best of shape. So I really have to side with Robbie, even though I think Robbie's well past his prime. In his last fight against Neil Magny, he offered no adversity to Neil Magny. I thought he would finish Neil Magny. If it was the old Robbie Lawler, he would have, but I don't think he has it anymore. But I think Nick Diaz, I don't think Nick Diaz should be fighting right now. The guy's 38, such a long layoff. Robbie Lawler's been more active, and that's why I'm picking him.
Yeah, Robbie Lawler's 39, so these guys, they're not at the start of their career anymore. They're at the tail end. They're not too many fights there for the both of them. As you mentioned, you don't really know what Nick Diaz is really doing it for nowadays. Is he doing it for the money? Is he coming back because he loves fighting? I'm not too sure. And the shape I saw him in that video, it was enough to convince me that he doesn't win this fight. I think Robbie Lawler takes this fight. And as you mentioned, because he's been more active than Nick Diaz, and I think that long layoff for Nick Diaz will be a massive factor in this fight. And in that first round, I think his timing will be off, everything will be off, and he just won't be able to get going in the fight. And Robbie Lawler will win a. I'm going to go with decision in this fight. I feel like no one's going to get finished in this fight, and I'm going to go Robbie Lawler. And I feel like he picks him apart because Nick Diaz can't get his timing, can't get shots off.
Yeah, I agree with you. One thing we can always expect from the Diaz brothers is durability. Maybe the durability's gone after such a long time, but I don't know. At least he's not been taking punches to the face. I know he's been rolling jiu-jitsu. I know that for sure. But on the Robbie Lawler side, I think he's going to carry much more power, and over time, that's definitely going to sway the judges, and he'll get a unanimous decision in this one. Robbie Lawler really needs a win like this, and I think Nick Diaz is the right guy right now to get him that win.
100%, I agree. A fantastic fight at middleweight now, because that was eventually got changed to middleweight due because Nick Diaz requested that. Robbie Lawler didn't really like that, but he's a fighter, and he accepted it anyway. I'm glad it's happening. Anyway, a fight that I'm also glad it's happening. Curtis Blaydes versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. A fantastic fight, top 5 heavyweight matchup that we have here. Jairzinho Rozenstruik off the back of a fantastic win against Augusto Sakai, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Yeah, and now Curtis Blaydes looks to return after his devastating loss against Derek Lewis. And he looks to return to winning ways. And I believe so in this fight, he will return to winning ways. Even though the losses to Ngannou and Lewis, I still see Curtis Blaydes as the most the most challenging opponent for Ngannou. I think the wrestling style is a huge factor for him. And I feel like he can really go far in the division. We've talked about him being a successor after Ngannou, after Stipe Miocic. That's where I see him going. I feel like after them guys are retired, Curtis Blaydes, gains that throne. But as for now, I feel like he's got a top arse for him. And Jairzinho Rozenstruik, I don't think he does enough for me in this fight. I think Curtis Blaydes goes back to his roots, wrestles Jairzinho Rozenstruik for 15 minutes.
Yeah, I really like what Curtis Blaydes can do in the octagon if he's ready to go. Against Alexander Volkov, he ragdolled him for several rounds. He eventually slowed down, but the good thing about this fight, it's only 3 rounds. Curtis Blaydes can do all the slams he wants. he can go as crazy as he wants to with that ground and pound. So that's a very much a positive for Curtis Blaydes. But here's the problem: Curtis Blaydes, his kryptonite appears to be power punchers. He's lost to Ngannou twice by stoppage. He lost to Derek Lewis just several months ago by an
By
uppercut.
Thundercut.
Yes, and that was those were brutal KOs. And Jairzinho has very comparable power to those two guys. The guy can sit you down with a jab if he needs to, but the problem for Jairzinho is he fought Overeem, who is Curtis Blaydes' teammate, and he got ragdolled as well. He got taken out over and over again, and he could not clip Overeem, who notoriously has a bad chin. So it's very hard to pick Jairzinho in a fight. It's always as of late, it's always a situation where Jairzinho just needs to go. He always likes to sit back. He had this problem against Cyril Gahn this year. He just never got going. And against Augusto Sakai, he barely got going once they did the 10-second clap for the first round. So it's all about Jairzinho really pressing the kill button here. And I think he can. Honestly, I think he puts away Curtis Blaydes in the third round here. I think Curtis Blaydes will taste the power and he's going to get a little scared of it. And I think eventually he gets clipped in the third round. Jairzinho just has that next level power that put away Curtis Blaydes here. I don't know why Curtis Blaydes is that big of a favorite when he just got knocked out by a guy with pretty much the same kind of power as Derek.
Yeah, I agree with you on that aspect. When Curtis Blaydes gets hit, he doesn't really take the shots well. Often than not, he either gets knocked out or he seems to crumble a little bit, as we've seen in the Ngannou second fight. But yeah, Blaydes just needs to stay well clear of that big shot and get to the fight to the ground as quick as he can. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if a minute in, Blaydes is shooting for the legs, and I think that's the right game plan. He needs to go back to his roots just to get himself back into that win column. This will be a very important fight for Blaydes. If he takes two big losses back to back, it's not looking good.
Yeah, I think he's kind of the Gustafsson of this division. The guys at the top, he had competitive fight. He would if it had not been for those guys, he could be champion. But fortunately, it doesn't work that way. And Jairzinho is one of the last guys I want to face right now after losing to power punchers.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to a women's flyweight fight, the second one on the main card. Jessica Andrade, the former title champion Valentina Shevchenko, and Cynthia Calvillo. A fantastic fight. First fight on the main card. Who are you picking with this one?
Yeah, I'm very confident in this fight. Jessica Andrade was the former strawweight champion, and Cynthia Calvillo could not make weight for strawweight. Now, she moved up, so essentially you could say this is a fight between two former strawweights that don't need to cut as much weight now. So Jessica Andrade, she looks to be very powerful at this division. She's not struggling to make weight. And Cynthia, on the other hand, her best strength is her wrestling. She really put on a good performance against Jessica Ai last year. But Jessica Ai and Jessica Andrade are two completely different fighters. Jessica Andrade has so much pop on her punches. A lot of people thought she could have had a shot against Valentina just a couple of months ago. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for her. But I think Shevchenko is definitely a better MMA wrestler than Calvillo. So I think this probably stays on the feet. Most likely, I don't think Calvillo can outmuscle Jessica. And I think Jessica will be content to just chuck some bombs at Calvillo's head and hope to put away. And I think Calvillo's pretty tough. I think she survives it, but she'll get tagged bad. And I think Jessica Andrade will have a nice showcase here.
Yeah, in my opinion, I see this fight being a really scrappy fight. Back and forth between the two. Maybe a few scrambles, few wrestling exchanges, but I see Jessica Andrade getting straight back up. Like as you mentioned, she's at 125. She is powerful. At 115, she was strong, but 125, she's a different animal. But Valentina Shevchenko was her kryptonite a few months back. But let's not take away from that loss. She's a fantastic fighter. She's a former champion, and she can pick you up at any time she wants. We've seen it in the Rose Namajunas fight. She has got incredible strength. And honestly, I wouldn't really put it past her in this fight. But I think Jessica Andrade gets this one done. But it being a really scrappy fight. And I feel like it's going to go to the judges' scorecards. And Cynthia Calvillo will once again get angry at the judges' scorecards.
Yeah, I honestly think it won't be close enough for her to make a case for herself. I think the power is so clearly bigger on the Andrade side. So I think Andrade will remind people how good she is after some people were kind of writing her off after the Shevchenko loss.
Yeah, you were talking about how good she is, and we were talking about a fight where there was where there was wrestlers, and moving on to the final fight on the prelims, Murad Divishvili. His second name should be wrestling because he's so good at it. It's incredible. What did he set a record in a past fight for the most takedowns in a 3-round fight? Was it like 21 or something?
It was against Gustavo Lopez.
Yeah, how many did he set? I can't really remember.
I can't remember either, but I remember Marab just taking him down at will.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic matchup in this one. A real step up in competition for me, for Merab Dvalishvili. Marlon Moraes, he can't really get doubted in this fight, but it was only a few months ago where he was getting rocked by Rob Font and getting knocked out in against
Corey Sandhagen.
Corey Sandhagen, exactly. That spinning wheel kick and getting knocked out by Rob Font, a fantastic, beautiful combination. Do I see Merab knocking out Marlon Moraes? No. Do I see him get better at the wrestling exchanges? Yes. And I feel like that's the way it's going to go. Yet again, I feel like this is going to be another wrestling matchup for Merab to, really showcase how good he is. But this is a tough fight for Merab, a real step up in competition. We get to really see, how good he is.
Yeah, there was a point in my MMA fandom where I thought Marlon Moraes was the best bantamweight on the planet, but then Triple C came along and spoiled that. So I think Marlon Moraes is probably still an elite guy, but it's all about how long he can be effective for. His last 3 losses are to excellent competition. Rob Font, Corey Sandhagen, and Henry Cejudo. All of those guys are top 3 guys. So that lets you know that Marlon, he's not. A lot of people are thinking he's washed. I don't think he's washed. I think in that first round he can decapitate or submit almost anybody. To be honest, he's very much a lethal guy. But the problem is he's fighting a guy who is effective for the entire fight. He will fight you every second in there, even if he's getting taken down. He'll still punch you wherever he can. I think Marlon can be a bad matchup for Merab on the feet 100%. I think he can clip him with a knee in the first round. I think he can get a guillotine as well. His goal was to submit Rob Font with a guillotine. His jiu-jitsu coach was talking him through it. But as soon as Rob Font got out of it, he just folded as soon as he started taking elbows. So I think Merab could definitely break him here if he can survive the early storm from Marlon. And that's a big if. I don't think Merab should be that big of a favorite, but most likely he will get his wrestling going in the second and third. In the first round, I think Marlon stuffs every takedown. Marlon stuffed takedowns from Cejudo. That's all you need to know. So it's all about if Merab can survive the first round and get things going in the second and third.
Yeah, that's the important question. How is his gas tank? Has it improved? In the first fight, as you mentioned, he could decapitate, submit anyone in the world. But the second, third round, he just doesn't look like Marlon Moraes. He gave Henry Cejudo the hardest fight we could probably say, other than DJ and Joseph Benavidez. Marlon Moraes is up there for giving Henry Cejudo a good run for his money.
100%. He very clearly won that first round with the leg kicks. So a lot of people are just degrading his skill set, and I don't think they should. But at the end of the day, I think Merab can drown him in those later rounds. I'm not going to straight up say that it's going to be complete dominance in that second round because the fight with Jose Aldo, that was very close too. And we know Jose Aldo, one of the best strikers. So Marlon isn't like completely done after the first round, but that's when the better guys can take advantage of him slowing down.
Yeah, fantastic fight at bantamweight. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going Merab Dvalishvili, and I with what you said, I presume you are as well.
Yes, by unanimous decision.
But yeah, I'm also going through decision. That's the only way I see it getting it done. But one that I don't think might not go to the judges' scorecards, and thankfully this fight is happening. Both guys had visa issues. Dan Hooker got his visa issue issued really late, but he's making it to the fight. But Nasrat has only just made it to Vegas, I believe, today.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. Both guys have gone through so much. Nasrat lost his mother, I believe, a month ago. And Dan Hooker, Mike, I thought earlier this week this fight wasn't even going to happen, but the UFC was able to put it all together. And let's hope these guys can make weight. Honestly, I would be down for this to be a 160-pound catch weight because these guys are going to be cutting weight in the air. That's got to be very unpleasant. But man, I think it's kind of an even playing field because both guys are kind of going through the same thing. Maybe more so on the Nasrat side, but when you lose a loved one, there's one of two ways things can go. You can either like have a very bad performance because you're distracted, you're not in there, or you can have a Habib type performance when you go in there and just kill him, and after the fight you mourn. So we don't know how Nasrat will perform, but I know that Dan Hooker has fought insane competition. After the Michael Chandler fight, a lot of people just did not recognize that he could bounce back. A lot of people were saying, "Oh, his chin's gone, this and that." He's gone through so many wars, which who knows that could be true. Nasrat does have that kind of power where he'll test your chin, but we got to give Dan Hooker some credit, man. The guy fought Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, Paul Felder in his last three. That's insane. He's only been fighting very good guys. Nasrat, on the other hand, the last two fights were Rafa Garcia, Alex Munoz, guys outside of the top 50 in this division. And Dan Hooker's fighting guys in the top five. So that lets you know where the kind of experience these guys have. And the only reason this fight is happening is because Nasrat took it. Dan Hooker could not get a single ranked opponent to take the fight. That's why we're getting this fight. And I think Dan Hooker will put Nasrat in his place. Nasrat's probably biting off more than he can chew. He's also gotten some durability issues, to be honest. He got put away by Drew Dober in the first round, clean. And also against Rafa Garcia, he got rocked. I think Dan Hooker will not slow down like other opponents that Nasrat's faced. Dan Hooker has gone the hardest 5 rounds possible in the past, and I think he'll put a pace on Nasrat. In the second round, I think he knocks him out.
Yeah, you mentioned that he's gone through the hardest 5 rounds possible, and that was against Dustin Poirier, who probably is the best lightweight in the planet right now, other than Charles Oliveira, who has the belt. And that's a different talking point for a different time. Once that fight eventually happens, we could talk about who we think's win that. But I think, in my opinion, I think Dustin Poirier is the best lightweight in the world right now because we have no Habib and Conor is washed. A little bit controversial, but Conor is it. I think Conor is done. I think that's it now. But Dan Hooker went toe to toe with Dustin Poirier. A fantastic fight, a very close fight. One that I would watch 10 times in a day and not get bored. It's a fantastic fight, but he just didn't do enough in that fight, and he was on the tail end of a scorecard that could have went his way if there's different judges. Exactly. So if there was different judges on that night, it could have went his way.
Yeah, on the night, I actually thought Dan Hooker won, but looking back, Dan Hooker just absorbed too much damage. And also, one point he made before the Michael Chandler fight was to be defensively sound. He says nobody has a good chin; it's all about defense. So hopefully that wouldn't make him gun shy. He says he doesn't care about getting fight of the night anymore. That's not life-changing money for him anymore. Nasrat, on the other hand, he's always down to scrap. I think Nasrat will come in reckless and get clipped. Dan Hooker is definitely the cleaner striker, and he's got a little bit of a reach advantage that'll come into play.
I feel like the step up in competition is going to be massive for Nasrat Haqparast in this fight. I feel like he's not ready. I thought they should have. I know he's on his way up to the top, but I feel like they should have brought him up a little bit slowly because as you mentioned, he got from Rafa Garcia straight to Dan Hooker. Rafa Garcia, as you mentioned, maybe top 30, top 50 at lightweight. Lightweight is absolutely stacked, and he's just gone to Dan Hooker, who's top 10, top 5 unofficially, in my opinion, and it's going to be a tough night for Nasrat. And I see this a bit a winnable fight for Dan Hooker, and I feel like he's going to put himself on the map, back in the win column, and announce himself to the lightweight rankings once again. And I'm looking forward to see what's next for him. I'd like to see a matchup with Islam Makhachev after this if he does get a win.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that at all. What's your official pick for this? Because I have Dan Hooker by second round KO.
I'm also going Dan Hooker KO, and I'm going for the third round. I think he's going to catch it, get it late. Either the third or first. I feel like Dan Hooker would catch him late, or he's going to catch him really early like Drew Dober did.
All right, so somebody else that could get a quick knockout is Chris Daukaus, and he's finally getting to face Shamil Abdurakhimov in a top 15 heavyweight matchup. This fight was supposed to happen, I believe, 3 other times or something. Here's a legitimate quote from Chris Daukaus. Shamil Abdurakhimov pulled out of the fight one time because he was tired from his fight camp. That's absurd. Shamil Abdurakhimov, he's clearly aging. He looks very slow. If you watch his last fight against Curtis Blaydes, it looked like he never was in that fight. The entire time he got ragdolled and just shelled up once he got hit. So I think Chris Daukaus has a clear speed advantage. Chris Daukaus will always have the speed advantage against these lower level heavyweights. I think he's got very quick hands. The boxing looks crisper every time we see him. I think he puts away Shamil Abdurakhimov with just straight up volume in the first, and I think this will be a standing TKO because I don't think Shamil Abdurakhimov can compete at the top anymore.
100%, I agree with you. Look at that single strikes landed per minute. 2.45 for Shamil, 11.78 for Chris Daukaus. I don't know why, but I feel like Chris Daukaus and Tom Aspinall, they're on a collision course. They're going to meet.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that fight. I feel like that would be a solid co-main event or really good for any pay-per-view main card. That's
100%.
Fight. And on the ground, though, Chris Daukaus is a BJJ black belt, former police officer. I don't think Shamil Abdurakhimov would be able to do much on the ground to him. And once it gets on the feet, I think Shamil Abdurakhimov would be tired from grappling and he would get clipped. So even if this goes a little longer, I favor Chris Daukaus. I think Chris Daukaus, he's quicker and he's got more pop on those punches. And he's got the age advantage, which is big in this one. So definitely picking Chris Daukaus first round TKO.
Yeah, I think that's the most reliable pick in this fight, and that's what I'm going for. I think Chris Daukaus gets it done in one, and I feel like this, as you mentioned, the speed advantage in them hands is going to be the massive factor in this fight, and Shamil just won't be able to handle it. So I'm looking forward to that fight. Looking to see how Chris Daukaus looks on fight night. And as I mentioned, Chris Daukaus and Tom Aspinall, they're on a collision course. It's going to happen, I'll tell you.
100%. And then you want to talk about not being able to handle things. A lot of these young prospects, they can't handle Roxanne. Roxanne has been the underdog countless times. Everybody's saying she's on the back nine of her career. She's not going to be able to beat this young up-and-comer. And what does she do? She proves them wrong, and she gets the win. Most infamously with the Macy Barber fight, she was a huge underdog and she pulled it off. Talia Santos had not fought anybody with more than 5 fights before she made her way to the Contender Series. So there's a lot of question marks on Talia Santos as well. She fought Mara Romero Barella and she lost by decision in that fight. A lot of people thought that was UFC jitters. Probably was, because after that she dominates Jillian Robertson bell to bell. You know where Jillian Robertson wants to be. She wants to be on the ground, and the fight was always on the ground, and Talia Santos was the offensive fighter the entire time. So I'm very impressed with Talia Santos. I'm very impressed with Roxanne as well, but in her last fight, she got pieced up by Viviana Araujo, and I think Talia Santos can have somewhat a similar game plan and piece her up as well.
Yeah, the boxing of Talia Santos is incredible. We mentioned that. I can't remember which fight it was, but her boxing looked phenomenal, and I was really impressed with it. But then, sorry?
Was it Molly McCann?
It might have been against Molly McCann. Yes, it was against Molly McCann. And Molly McCann is a fantastic boxer, and Talia Santos just beat him to the punch that night. And but then we saw against Gillian Robertson that she can, she's versatile. She's an all-round fighter, and she controlled Gillian Robertson, as you mentioned, in her own house. Controlled her 15 minutes, bell to bell, phenomenal performance, and that's the way I see it going. I think Talia Santos has the beatings for Roxanne Modafferi everywhere where the fight goes. I feel like the wrestling exchanges might favor Roxanne Modafferi a little bit, but Talia Santos will be able to hold her own. And the boxing exchanges, I think that's evidently clear. Talia Santos is going to be the better boxer.
Yeah, Roxanne is so awkward on the feet. It's very clear that she's not a classic striker. She's gonna get clipped. She will eat shots, and I think Talia Santos can keep this fight upright enough to do enough damage to sway the judges.
Yeah, that's 100%. I agree with you there. I think Talia Santos takes this one with decision. I feel like this is going to go 15 minutes.
Yeah, I agree as well.
Moving on to the first fight on the early prelims, we've got Uso Medic versus Jalen Turner, the Tarantula. A guy that I always thought could have a lot of potential in the lightweight division. He's absolutely huge for lightweight. It's incredible. But who are you picking in this one? We've got Jalen Turner, a guy that I thought could be a fantastic prospect in the future, against Medic, who is a prospect at lightweight.
Man, I'm all over my Jalen Turner pick on this one. I cannot wait to pick against Urijah Medic again. Because if you remember the debut of Urijah Medic, I was all about Elon Cruz. I was telling you, Elon Cruz has a way better ground game. But here's the problem. Elon Cruz went for a takedown, and he did not get it. And on the feet, he was obliterated. That was the worst performance as a referee I've ever seen Mark Smith have. He let that go on way too long. That was a brutal beating, and I'm still not sold on Urijah Medic. He's a King's MMA guy. I'm sure he's getting better on the ground with Beneil Dariush helping him out all the time, but I don't think he can catch up to Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner, he prefers to strike, but he will not mind going to the ground as he did with Brock Weaver. He destroyed Brock Weaver on the feet. He hurt him bad and then got a rear naked choke. He also has a triangle on his record. Urijah Medic, he fought terrible competition on the regional scene. And once he fought a guy with a decent record, the guy was significantly smaller. So I think Urijah Medic padded his record. The Elon Cruz win was definitely legit. But Jalen Turner, I think he's got more UFC experience. He fought Vicente Luque, if that's worth anything. So I'll pick Jalen Turner to get a second round submission here. I don't think Urijah Medic is good at all off of his back.
If I remember correctly, I picked Medic and you picked Cruz, and I got that one right that night. And I'm going with Medic again. I'm going with my boy Medic. I believe in him. As you mentioned, the padding of his record, is there's a lot in that. It's very, very just very padded, should we say? But I'm believing in him. I feel like he's a great prospect. He's got power in them hands, as we saw in that Cruz fight, and I see that going to say. But I think Jalen Turner is going to go out cold in the first minute.
Wow, that would be absolutely wild, and I would definitely respect Urijah Medic a little more if he gets this win here. But this will be the told you so fight of the week.
Yeah, because I'll be telling you that Urijah Medic is the real deal.
All right, we'll see. We'll see next week.
Moving on to the next fight, our middleweight, and you informed me before we went on there once again that there was two Nick Diaz partners, trainers that are fighting, and they're the first two fights of the evening. So, or actually, the first three fights of the evening. We got Omar Moraes versus Jonathan Pierce, but the first Nick Diaz training partner is Nick Maximov.
Yes, it is. Maximov, whatever. Regardless, and he's fighting Cody Brundage, who he went on the Contender Series and he got knocked out by William Knight by elbows on a takedown attempt. If you know MMA well, you know that only the younger, inexperienced guys get caught in that tactic. Elbows going for a takedown. I don't think Cody Brundage is any good, to be honest. His record, you want to talk about padded records in the last one? let me show you some of the guys he fought, because the guys he fought had preposterous records. Um, I really think that Nick Maximov definitely had a better path to the UFC. He's 6-0, undefeated, and I think he really paid his dues. Of course, he's training with Nick Diaz, but if you want to know just how tough um, Nick Maximov is on the Contender Series, he fought at heavyweight. You're saying at heavyweight is that an error or something? Because this fight is at middleweight. No, that's not an error. He fought at heavyweight. He moved up 2 weight classes, weighed in coincidentally at 209, and he beat a heavyweight on the Contender Series, a legitimate heavyweight. So this guy is down to fight anybody. Doesn't matter at any weight. So I think this guy's a real fighter. And if you want to see what Cody Brandage was doing on the regional circuit, you'll see he was not exactly having fights. He was having more showcases. Look at the records on those guys. That's absolutely preposterous. You want to read some of them off, Lenny?
1-1, 0-1, 2-0, 13-15, and then he fought the same guy, 13-16.
How would you fight the same can twice in a row? I don't know. That's just preposterous. And then he loses to William Knight, and read the record of the guy he fights to rebound from that.
4-1.
4-1. Not that impressive. I don't think he's UFC ready. He actually was supposed to get a second shot of Contender Series, but Carl Roberson fell out of that fight, so we're getting a short notice fight for him here. And honestly, I think he gets guillotined in the first round by Nick Maximov, who's super slick off of his back.
Yeah, you've got to be super slick if you're training with Diaz, bro. So you've got to be good at BJJ. And if you're looking on his Tapology page, you can see Nate Diaz in the background with him, overlooking him. But yeah, this is a fantastic one. I'm looking forward to. I'm very excited to see how he looks. He's got them big He's got their big partners in the back. As we mentioned, the Diaz bros, and he's got some big boots to fill. And I feel like he's going to get a submission win in this fight. As you can see, there he's very active in the grappling. He's been on submission underground quite a few times, and so I feel like it's going to be a submission win for Nick Maximov in this fight.
Yeah, he beat an 11-2 heavyweight on the Contender Series as well. That's crazy. Up 2 weight classes. I give him a lot of credit for that. And he's grappling on Chael Sonnen's underground against pure grapplers, and he's submitting them. So if you think his opponent, Cody Brundage, who's fought all cans, is going to thrive, you're crazy. You're crazy.
So here we are. Look, Nick fighting on the Contender Series. He weighed in at 209 pounds, and his opponent was 263. Wow.
He stuffed every takedown and was able to get some body shots going after that in the sprawl. That's how he won the fight. So very impressed with Maximov's willingness to fight anybody, any weight. And I think this is going to be a much easier fight than the heavyweight he fought, Oscar Cota.
Yeah, and there is another Nick Diaz and Nate Diaz training partner fighting next. Would you like to introduce him also?
Yes, Martin Sano is fighting Matthew Semmelsberger. We just completely disparaged the name of Cody Brundage. We're about to disparage the name of Martin Sano, because the only reason Martin Sano is in the UFC is because he trains with Nick Diaz. And Nick Diaz probably said to the UFC, if you want me to fight for you, how about you help me out here and get one of my guys into the door? And that's what they did. A guy who does not deserve to be in the UFC. He's 4-2-1, and his last win was all the way back in 2014 at Legacy FC. That's insane. I don't think the UFC's ever done this, to be honest. They got a guy in off of a skid who hasn't won in 7 years. This is crazy. And he's fighting a legitimately talented guy in Matthew Semmelsberger, who has one-punch knockout power, if you remember his Jason Witt fight. I think this is a complete mismatch. In most cases, he wouldn't. Yeah, you're pointing out he did beat Jeff Neal, but where was Jeff Neal in his career? He was 2-0 in 2013. If that fight happens now, he gets decapitated. There's no doubt. So that's definitely quality win. That's aged well, but Jeff Neal was not ready at the time. He is now. I don't think much of Martin Sano. He's kind of well rounded, I guess. He's got decent power, but I'll just say that he gets steamrolled by Matthew Semelsberger. He does
Yeah,
not have a chin like his buddies, the Diaz bros. So I think it's going to be a terrible night for him. I think Matthew Semelsberger gets the performance of the night bonus.
yeah, I think that's the pick in this fight. Semelsberger gets this one done. As you see, he fought a WS World Series of Fighting 60 Bahamas versus Fitch, where Bahamas had that infamous incident where he held on for the submission for too long. Eventually got cut from the World Series of Fighting. World Series of Fighting is now the PFL. If you didn't know, now you know. So anyway, he fought at that card. Then he fought in Bellator, got finished by Don Mohammed. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, it's crazy that he's in the UFC at all. It's absolutely wild. Is
And
your
then,
first round
and then
KO
he
as
got,
well? Because
then he got a draw against Diego Herzog. Is he related to the referee?
possibly, but both guys were 4-2. He's not a high level fighter at all, and in 99.9% of cases, he would be far away from the UFC. But they just needed to negotiate well with Nick Diaz, and they did it. So first round KO, Matthew Semelsberger. That's a lock, just as big as a lock as Valentina Shevchenko.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that one. Definitely the way I see it going. If you're Matt Semelsberger, do you feel a little bit disheartened, a little bit disappointed with the matchup that UFC have given you?
Honestly, the UFC rarely does this, where they give a guy a tune-up fight. But hey, I guess you take them when you can, and especially if you'll get a 50 G's extra for getting that quick KO.
Yeah, people are underestimating the first fight of the evening. Omar Moraes versus Jonathan Pierce. This is going to be a fantastic fight, and I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Omar Moraes, who's a little bit of a prospect at featherweight. Am I mistaken? Weren't he the one?
He fought Giga Chikadze.
Yeah, and gave him a good run for his money.
100%. I actually pick Omar Moraes to be Giga Chikadze in that fight, but Giga just proved to once again to improve again. Jonathan Pierce is also a guy that's improved well. He got a finish on the Contender Series against a guy who just fought recently this week, Rosales. That's a very tough guy, and he put him away in the third round. So you know Jonathan Pierce has good cardio. In his first UFC fight, he fought the ghost of Joe Lozon. Everybody knew that Joe Lozon was done, but somehow Joe Lozon gets a first-round TKO over Jonathan Pierce. So right after that, I kind of wrote Jonathan Pierce off, and I thought he would get finished by Kai Kamaka, but Kai Kamaka just got outworked and eventually he got finished on the ground. I don't think Omar Morales is anywhere near where Kai Kamaka was then. I think Omar Morales will not tire. I think he's got a lot of pop on his punches, good takedown defense. This is a nightmare of a matchup for Jonathan Pierce, if you ask me. I think Omar Morales can eventually crack into the top 15.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. 100%. I think Moraes puts on a fantastic performance on the weekend, and he does it in devastating fashion. I feel like he win against Shane Young was good, but I feel like he's going to get a finish in this fight, and I see it becoming via TKO.
Yeah. Omar Morales has only 2 TKOs on his record. That's why I didn't pick that. But otherwise, I think he definitely tags Jonathan Pierce bad. But Jonathan Pierce, I don't know if he's too durable because he got finished by Joe Lozon, but maybe Omar Morales will pace himself a little more and maybe not go for a finish right away. So I think Omar Morales gets a very dominant unanimous decision.
Yeah, Jonathan Pierce has been submitted in the past. One via toe hold, and the other one it just says submission, so I can't really see what that was. But yeah, as you mentioned, that Joe Lozon fight did get ground and pounded. So yeah, a fantastic fight to start off the card. One I'm very definitely looking forward to. I'm picking Omar Moraes in that fight. I think he gets it done. But a fantastic card we have on our hands this weekend. Not only that, if you're a combat sports fan, we have Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk also this weekend. So that's one I will also be tuning in to watch. And my man AJ will get it done, and he's going to get it done in the late rounds. 8 to 12 is the rounds he will start to take over. I feel like the middle rounds, about 4 to 6. I think Usyk will start to land a lot more. Maybe AJ will get in a little bit of trouble, but I feel like the start of the fight and the end of the fight is where the experience of championship fights at heavyweight, let me mention, will take over for Anthony Joshua, because Anthony Joshua is a legit heavyweight. And Usyk is a cruiserweight. He's a small guy. He's moving up to heavyweight, and I feel like he's going to pay the price for being undersized in this fight.
Yeah, size matters, and I think Joshua will make it matter and land the bigger shots and probably put him away. Maybe a standing TKO, maybe the towel throws it in. I think Joshua is on the collision course with Tyson Fury. But who knows? Deontay Wilder. He's got diamond on those hands. It could happen. But either way, I think we're gonna see a true, the one and only true boxing heavyweight champion before 2022 is over.
And that's a different talk for a different time. If the fight ever gets made, I that will be a fantastic episode. I can't wait for that one. But yeah, Anthony Joshua versus Alexander Usyk this weekend, and the main event of UFC, Alexander Volkanovski versus Brian Ortega. Fantastic weekend of fights. Next week will be an interesting show because I'll be off in London at the Bellator shows, covering in person. So I'll be doing the podcast live from Wembley.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a really wonderful card Bellator has lined up. Douglas Lima against Michael Venom Page in an epic rematch. We've been waiting a long time for. Michael Venom Page always brings excitement to fight week. You never know how he can put you away, and I think he has a real shot in that fight. So that one will be very interesting. And might we talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame inductees just for a couple minutes, because that is tonight, and I feel like we have a very great set of inductees. This is actually the 2020 class. It would have happened had it not been for the pandemic. Let's just say what George St. Pierre has done in the sport of MMA. 11 title fight wins. He's beaten so many greats, including Carlos Condit, who recently retired. We would actually have to do like a half-hour podcast just on George St. Pierre. So just tell me, what's your favorite George St. Pierre moment?
I think it's when he retained the belt from Matt Hughes. I feel like the adversity he went through losing to Matt Hughes young, and he came back, got the belt back, and I think that was a very, very good moment for me. That's the one that comes out of the top of my head straight off. Was when he got the belt back from Matt Hughes.
Yeah. Also, in the fight wing, we have Jones and Gustafsson. Their first fight, it's going in, and how could you not acknowledge the greatness of that fight? The scorecard on that fight is very controversial. Did you score it for Jones that night?
I scored it for Jones that night.
I did as well. A lot of people like to say Gustafsson won, just because Jones was so dominant at the time. When Gustafsson was getting his offense going, a lot of people were giving more credit to him just for getting offense going. But I think Jones clearly won the fight. It's an epic battle, and we learned just how much heart Jones had.
It wouldn't be the sport without MMA, without controversial judges. Hopefully we don't see it this weekend. I'd like it to be straightforward, but it will probably happen this weekend, let's face it.
Also, Donkey Kong is getting in. Kevin Randleman, good friend of Mark Coleman. My goodness, what he did to Fedor was unbelievable. He slammed him on his head. I'm shocked Fedor was able to come back and win that fight. Where do you think Mark Randleman ranks amongst heavyweight champions, amongst great heavyweight champions?
Yeah, he's definitely up there. We had some greats inside the UFC, inside the MMA. I definitely would put him up there with top 5. You know, we have Fedor Emelianenko, Stipe Miocic, some greats, and I think he's definitely up there with them names.
Also, we have Mark Ratner going in. A lot of people don't recognize the name, but the guy is responsible for getting MMA legalized in every U.S. state. So the guy went above and beyond to get the UFC on your television every Saturday. So always got to thank that guy. And that about wraps it up, Lenny. Send him home.
Yeah, and credit to Mark, because if it wasn't for him, you wouldn't be speaking about the sport of MMA today. So credit to that guy. Fantastic show today. talk about UFC 266 and Joshua versus Usyk. A fantastic episode. Great to be joined by you once again, Oscar. 1 hour's now ticking on the clock, and I can't wait to wrap this up. Get a good night's sleep, and get even closer to the weekend because, man, the fights this weekend are going to deliver.
Yeah, there's a great amount of energy surrounding this fight week. It's back into Vegas. It's International Fight Week. It's the return to Nick Diaz. It's the true finale between the tough coaches. It's going to be a showcase fight for Valentina. A lot of good stuff to look forward to. Make sure that you enjoy the fights.
Yeah, 100%. Make sure you enjoy the fights. Make sure you check us out on social media. MMA Heads, Oscar over there, and MMA Unhinged for me over here. So that's us signing off for MMA Unhinged and the podcast. I hope you enjoyed the 50th episode, a landmark, one of many. And I'm very looking forward to the fights this weekend. I hope you do. I hope you enjoy, and I hope they don't disappoint. And we'll catch you next week where we talk